We've heard a lot of different people come forward and speak out about Ellen DeGeneres, but Kevin Spacey was not someone many expected to be among them. And according to these claims, what he allegedly had to say about Ellen was unlike anything people had heard before.
Can you imagine if I didn't learn anything? If it was 7 years, then I learned nothing? The house is being sold at auction. Really? So I have to go back to Baltimore and put all my things in storage. Really? So the answer to that question is, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to live now.
According to a new wave of claims circulating online, Ellen allegedly targeted Kevin Spacey after he supposedly tried to speak out against her within the entertainment industry. The claim suggests that Kevin knew what Ellen was really like behind the scenes and was prepared to stand up for people he believed were being mistreated. However, before he could allegedly bring those claims into the public spotlight, he was supposedly silenced.
In July 2016, actor Kevin Spacey sexually assaulted my son.
The tears of a mother in Boston today, revealing what she claims happened to her son.
The victim, my son, was a starstruck, straight, 18-year-old young man who had no idea that the famous actor was an alleged sexual predator or that he was about to become his next victim.
Journalist Heather Unro's tweet about Kevin Spacey last month triggered all the allegations against him. Today, she went public and the police are now investigating.
To Kevin Spacey, I want to say this. Shame on you for what you did to my son.
The BBC has interviewed more alleged victims. Chris Nixon didn't have to speak out, but wanted to make clear Kevin Spacey's behaviour was part of a pattern.
It's not just sleazy, it's predatorial. He did what he did because he knew he'd get away with it.
Kevin would later be acquitted, and over time, the entire controversy largely faded from public attention.
I imagine that many of you can understand that there's a lot for me to process after what has just happened today. But I would like to say that I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully before they reach their decision. And I am humbled by the outcome today.
For years, Rosie O'Donnell and Kathy Griffin have hinted that they knew far more about Ellen DeGeneres than the public ever realized. Their comments have extended beyond allegations that Ellen mistreated employees behind the scenes to broader online speculation involving Jeffrey Epstein. As more stories involving powerful Hollywood figures made headlines, Rosie reflected on how she recognized certain warning signs. She explained that when the Harvey Weinstein scandal erupted, she already understood the language, the tactics, and the patterns that powerful people allegedly use to protect themselves. Rosie also said she had experienced controlling behavior personally and described situations where someone allegedly tried to dictate exactly what she should say publicly in order to protect their own image.
Read about the Harvey Weinstein drama. Did you have an immediate reaction to that?
Well, I'm 55, he's 65. He became very famous at the same time my show was hitting. So I knew him and I knew of him, and these stories were not a surprise to me. And it's also just a problem of sexism in America. Just like racism is inherent, every time a football player kneels down, they're kneeling down to say racism is systemic in our nation. Well, so is sexism, and so is the belittlement of women by men in power, usually white men. So that it didn't surprise me. It's like we have to agree on the givens in America in order to solve the problem. And if the problem is why are women being abused at a horrible number, and why is this mass incarceration of African Americans, how is this the Jim Crow laws contemporized? There's amazing stuff out there to read if you're interested, and we can, I believe, solve these issues if we're able to speak about them out in the open.
Rather than staying silent, Rosie said she chose to speak openly about information that was already part of the public record. She pointed to reports that Harvey Weinstein had failed to pay vendors and referenced the numerous allegations that had been made against him, emphasizing that everything she discussed had already been widely reported. According to this narrative, Rosie and Kathy eventually decided it was time to tell what they believed was the bigger story, one they argue goes beyond individual celebrities and reflects a broader culture in which influential people protect one another. Rosie also spoke about how difficult it can be for many people to understand why alleged victims don't simply walk away. She noted that many were teenagers or very young adults at the time and argued that people who have experienced years of trauma often respond in ways that outsiders struggle to understand, drawing in part on her own experiences.
How did your father deal with it in reality?
Not very well. He had his own issues and demons. He had a very tough childhood, an alcoholic, abusive father, and never really got the help that I think every person needs when they have lived through that as a child. The worst thing that can happen to anyone is to become what you loathe, and I think that he had a lot of problems to deal with in his own life, never mind being faced with raising these 5 small children. He did get a lot of empathy or sympathy from the local people in the town. Like, we'd go to church and they would all be like, oh, there's Ed O'Donnell, such a good man that he's doing, look, he's all those. He got a little bit heralded, as this widower who was doing this great job raising the kids.
Now that you've had 4 kids yourself, have you been able to look back on him in a more favourable light, given the enormity of what was suddenly thrust upon him?
In some ways I do, but there was some, there are some unforgivable things, I think, that as a child, the statute of limitations, I think, has to wear off, right? You get to be 50 years old, you can't still be angry at what your father did in 1970. You have to work it out yourself and then find a place for it in your own life and not rehash it forever.
Have you reached that place?
I have. I've reframed it, and I've,
Have you forgiven him in your mind?
I have, and he knows it, and I've told him that, and he's still alive. And I think he's still suffering, and that's a sad thing to me. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, every child loves their dad and their mom. They do. It's innate. I would go to McLaren Hall, which was a place that was open in L.A. for children in protective custody. First time I went there was a little boy, and his hand was bandaged. And I said to him, hey, buddy, how you doing? He said, good. He was like 6. I said, what do you want for Christmas? He said, only to see my mommy. And I said, I'm sure you will, little man. When I walked out, one of the social workers said to me, his mother held his hand to the stove and burnt his fingers off. And what that child wanted was his mother. So no matter what, every child wants their parents to love them and to be in their life. And I think it's a very hard thing when stuff occurs that makes that almost impossible.